Right now, the world is an especially frightening place. We've been ravaged by coronavirus for almost a year and a half. We've lived in the grip of fear and confusion. We've been isolated and we've been held prisoner in our own homes. And now finally, we face the prospect of returning to normal, which for many people, after all this time, is the scariest thing of all. So how do we safely push through our fear and anxiety to take our lives back? Welcome to Rector Rockstar.
When you fall, when you bleed, remember life's a pendulum. When you're lost and you fear, don't lose your faith in the dark of the night.
At some point in their lives, everybody has experienced fear to some degree. At best, it can be just a nagging apprehension. But at its worst, it can be an overwhelming and debilitating feeling that has the power to cage us in and hold us prisoner. Anxiety can take away our freedom to do the things we want to do and cuts us off from our own world. Terror can use a number of different shackles and chains to keep us locked up. Mental states such as overthinking, doomsday thinking, overestimating danger, and overanalyzing, which are all different variations on always expecting the worst. However it presents itself, defeating fear isn't always as simple as just get over it, as it can be a formidable and terrifying opponent. But it doesn't have to stay that way. There are ways to escape fear and take control of your life back. The reason for making this video on this topic right now is that here in the UK, we are currently just days away from dropping the restrictions put in place as safety measures against COVID-19. Like most countries, we've endured hundreds of days of the media pummeling us with constant tales of doom. The economy is on its knees. Businesses have struggled or sadly closed. Anxiety and confusion are rife. And tragically, many have been seriously ill or sadly lost loved ones. Needless to say, the prospect of gleefully going back to normal is understandably causing great stress for many, including me. But speaking for myself, I know deep down we have to find our way back to something close to normal. I don't want to ever have to accept the horrible social distancing for the long term. And because I'm obviously a rock star, I really want to see the return of the live music scene. I'm fearful of the worst, but I want to see better days. There's just the small matter of fear holding me back and trapping me in shackles and a ball and chain. And my feelings are reflected in many other people as well. Now, before looking at breaking free from our fear prison, a quick disclaimer specific to coronavirus. None of my advice should replace your own government's guidelines. Whatever point in history you watch this video, if there are certain COVID restrictions or measures in place, my recommendation is always to follow those, as they are designed to keep us safe. And don't forget to wash your hands. Of course, those of us with OCD have been washing our hands long before it was trendy, which I suppose is a small advantage for us. Defeating fear can be done, but it requires effort and a certain amount of risk. There can be periods of stress while you break free from the fear prison, which means that resolve and determination are needed.
Oh, that sounds like an awful lot of effort. Wouldn't it just be easier to avoid the things you're frightened of, and then there's no need to go to all that trouble, yeah?
Well, I have 5 things to say to that plan. No, 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 no. No. Among many drawbacks, there are 2 big downsides to not pushing back against fear. The first of these is avoidance. Fear can sometimes feel so powerful that it makes you want to run away and avoid whatever it is that frightens you. In the case of coronavirus, good examples of avoidance could be avoiding social situations, avoiding interactions with other people, or even not going outside at all. By allowing fear to drive you to avoidance, you're allowing it to shut off various freedoms in your life and closing down your world little by little. Your prison cell gradually becomes smaller and smaller and more restrictive. And this is no way to live. You deserve to be free. Your life is for living, so don't let fear steal any of it from you. The other big drawback of letting fear romp around unchecked is the emergence of safety behaviours. Now, these are when a person engages in activities they believe will protect them from whatever it is that they fear. And in the case of COVID-19, it might be that a person feels the need to always wear gloves to stop anything from touching their hands. By carrying out these safety behaviours, anxiety can be relieved and reduced temporarily, because from the person's point of view, they perceive these actions make the situation less dangerous. They convince themselves that nothing bad has happened because they have carried out these actions, even though there was no major threat in the first place. These poor souls basically justify to themselves that these safety behaviours are protecting them, which starts a vicious cycle that can be seen in conditions such as OCD. The downside is that although these safety behaviours may not be harmful in the beginning, a person might become more and more dependent on them. This could then be especially terrifying if a situation arises where it is not possible for these actions to be used. For example, leaving the house but forgetting your gloves, which can then lead to a state of panic. Now, here are a few more examples of safety behaviours. Only going to places with another person, never going alone. Worrying and ruminating, believing it will actually prevent disaster. Always needing reassurance from others. Drinking alcohol prior to a situation that is deemed dangerous. Sitting in the same seat every time. Or constantly checking and rechecking things. It's worth taking the time to identify any aspects of your own life where fear and anxiety may have imposed limitations in the form of safety behaviours. For example, are there certain circumstances you always try to avoid? Are there any situations where you always need reassurance? Are there things you can't face doing alone? Do you avoid confrontation, shy away from being honest about how you feel, or find it difficult to make eye contact? Do you engage in other safety behaviours such as taking medication you may not need, comfort eating, or drinking alcohol excessively as a distraction or by way of escape? Do you feel the need to control everything or plan every detail to the point of obsession? Do you find yourself dwelling on past occurrences, reliving them over and over, dissecting every moment, every word to determine if you should have done something differently? In a similar way to avoidance, adopting safety behaviours is also allowing fear to put you in shackles and restrict your freedom. These actions can also make life plain miserable. And speaking as an obsessive hand washer and worrier, I say this from personal experience. Again, it's no way to live. And these behaviours can also lead to a whole new set of challenges and fears if left unchecked. Now enough of this doom and gloom. Let's consider something more positive. Take a moment to realise that fear, even though it's scary, is not actually stopping you do anything. If you choose to overrule it and fight against it, you can still do what you want to do. For example, if I wanted to go and climb a tree like in my childhood, I could if I was determined enough, even though I'd be a bit apprehensive about, falling and dying. When it comes down to it, fear is not actually going to stop me if I was determined enough. And I am tempted. When it comes down to it, fear is just a state of mind. Now, the best way to deal with fear and apprehension is to meet them head on in open warfare. Although steadily and tactically, so you don't suddenly rush yourself into a state of unprepared panic. So now let's reveal the weapons for this battle. Let's also consider a situation relating to coronavirus where you might be frightened to go to the supermarket for fear of all the crowds of people that could be there. So the first line of defense is positive thinking and positive visualization.
Is that it?
Stop groaning. I realise that sounds too simple and pointless. But just remember, your subconscious mind is always ready to believe anything you tell it. So if you plan your trip to the supermarket by constantly repeating, I can't do it, I can't do it, your subconscious will believe you and then actively help you to fail. Thanks, subconscious. So here's the good news. The opposite is also true. If you think and affirm to yourself that I can do it, your subconscious will believe that and will actively help it to become reality. See my previous video about thinking positive. And pictures are even better than words. So visualize yourself in great detail succeeding at your visit to the store. See yourself bravely strutting around the shop with the presence of a rock star or a superhero. You are strong and you are fearless. Your subconscious will accept this as your instruction and then help make it a reality. That's pretty cool, yeah? So now for the next weapon. When preparing to fight your fear, practice relaxing your body and your mind to limit the symptoms and the effects of panic. The best technique for this is centering, which we've looked at in a previous video. It takes repetition and practice to ground yourself quickly, but it is very effective for steadying your balance, relaxing your muscles, regulating your breathing, focusing your mind, and expelling your anxiety, all in a very short process. It's ideal to use this method just before setting out for that supermarket. Check out the tutorial using the link here and use the centering technique to throw a spear at your fear. The third weapon gives you a means to pummel fear with a bat and teach it who's boss. It's a technique called graded exposure. When planning to make that trip to the supermarket, fear may try to discourage you and frighten you. and drive you to engage in some of those safety behaviours we looked at earlier. Anxiety could make you feel it is safer not to bother, or you need reassurance from others, or you haven't prepared enough yet, or you can't do this alone. The best way to get through this is to set yourself small, bite-sized objectives and push your limits one achievement at a time. Don't try to achieve your whole goal in just one step, as this increases your chances of being overwhelmed by panic and terror, which then lead to disappointment and despair. Instead, build up to your goal gradually. Push your limits steadily but deliberately, and expose yourself to fear one small step at a time. So let's go back to that example of someone who is terrified of going to the supermarket on their own. And for the purpose of this example, let's also say that even going outside is a frightening ordeal for them. Anxiety makes them stay indoors, avoiding the outside world as if it presented mortal danger. Now, even though their fear is irrational and there is very little peril at the supermarket, the feeling of fear is very real and prohibitive to them. It holds them prisoner in their own home and in their own mind. Now, it would not be a good idea to simply tell this person to pull themselves together while making them walk straight down to the supermarket alone on a busy Saturday afternoon to overcome their fear, as this could possibly lead to a full-blown panic attack. Now, instead, my advice to this fictional person would be to graduate their exposure to their anxiety. So, let's break this frightening goal down into manageable, smaller goals. Starting with the easiest, with each being slightly more challenging than the last. Think of these like stepping stones across a pond. As the fear and anxiety of each step decreases, allow the sense of bravery, power and accomplishment to flow through you. Savour it. Congratulate yourself on a job well done, and maybe even treat yourself with a reward. Then proceed to the next target, which should be a slightly more demanding challenge. At each stage, look out for any safety behaviours that may creep in. Those activities or rituals that are helping keep you prisoner. One at a time, gradually drop those safety behaviours and allow yourself to realise that you're just fine without them. So now, let's gradually expose ourselves to the fear of going outside and then going to that supermarket with the following stepping stones. Repeat each of these smaller targets until you feel comfortable and confident before moving on to the next. Okay, here we go. First, we're going to open the front door and stand on the front porch. Then, we're going to walk to the end of the driveway. Then, we're going to walk to the end of the street. We're then going to walk to the small shop at the end of the street and meet a friend there and go inside together. Then we're going to walk to the small shop at the end of the street and go inside alone. And then we're going to walk halfway to that supermarket. Next, we're going to walk all the way to the supermarket, but don't go inside just yet. Then we're going to walk to the supermarket, meet a friend and go inside together. Next, we're going to walk to the supermarket at a quiet off-peak time, maybe in the late evening, and go inside alone. Then finally, we're going to walk to the supermarket at the weekend and go inside alone and buy yourself something really nice as a reward. Once you have completed all of the smaller goals in sequence, you will have successfully arrived at your overall goal. Fear did not stop you. Well done. You've overcome your anxiety, and it will now have less and less control over you the more you prove it wrong. Enjoy your achievement. The methods in this video can be applied to any situation that is causing you apprehension and concern, and help you break free from your fear prison. In the case of COVID-19, please stay safe and comply with any official guidelines. Then beyond that, I wish you success using these techniques to defeat any fears you might have. I also wish you good health. I hope you found this video useful. As always, I'd like to thank you for watching. Keep smiling and look after yourself.
I won't waste my life away, never close my eyes, living like it's my last day, never close my eyes. I won't waste my life.
See, these are the best pound I've ever spent, these lot. Do you want them afterwards?
No.
Do you not want to play policeman with them?
No. Your room, man. What is up with your room?
Do you want a hay fever pill?
No.
Okay. I've broken fear. I've broken fear. I need to fix him. Pummeling us with tales of doom. Do you want to pummel me? Yeah. Pummel me. Do you mind?
Yes.
Just, okay, one more time. You only got to hit me on the edge. It's not like working in a coal mine.
Oh, it feels like it.
But at its worst, it can be overwhelming and deliberating? No.
Thank you.
Now get out of my bed and my rubbish in my room.
In hindsight, I should have done all the handcuff bits in one go, shouldn't I? Because it's taking a long time to get these on and off. I don't know how kids do it. I don't.